Sup, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Flea Flicker. I am TimmyB, as always, joined by JoeyD and JoeyD, man. We have had quite a week of sports. Not only did baseball just end the lockout about an hour and a half ago at the time of recording, we got conference tournaments in college basketball getting ready for March Madness. We got your team, the Philadelphia 76ers now. Ben Simmons is coming back into town tonight after the James Harden trade. And
Let's go.
Joe, this is an NFL show, so obviously there's a lot of NFL news to talk about from our episode that came out the other day. Thank you guys so much again for watching it. But Joe, we had to hop on. There was so much that happened. Are you ready to talk about some NFL news?
Tim, I am so ready. It's been a week of highs and lows and then highs again, and we're feeling good, Tim. We're in a great spot right now. I'm in a good mental place with everything that's happened.
And the best thing about this too, Joe, is that the people watching this are liking this video. They're also hitting that subscribe button. But every day something has happened. It wasn't everything just happened like on a Monday night. Monday this happened. Tuesday this happened. Wednesday it's now Thursday, and some other news just happened. So who knows what's going to happen on Friday? But let's start off with Monday. Kind of the big news of the day in the NFL is that Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley got suspended for the whole season, the whole 2022 season, all 17 games, for placing some bets. Now, he did take a leave of absence for some mental health, which we fully support here on the Flea Flicker. But during that time, he placed a couple of wagers, placed a 3-team, a 5-team, and an 8-team parlay. I don't think he won because he bet on the Falcons. And Joe, I know about betting on the Falcons. Normally, you don't win a lot of money, but it was about $1,500, and that was the big news. And we didn't know when it was going to happen, when he was going to return. He was a trade prospect as well. The Falcons kind of knew about this. And so out of good faith, they decided to not have conversations or not hold trade talks, which I don't know. If I'm a GM, I'd be like, yeah, well, yeah, here you go. We'll
Yeah,
take it. We'll
I don't
take it.
know. I don't know how much I buy that part, Tim,
Yeah.
because a report came out today that apparently the Eagles were close to a trade with the Falcons for Calvin Ridley.
Oh.
I know.
Oh man, if only that. Yeah, I mean, if I was the Falcons, I'd be like, yeah, we'll take a second and a fourth or whatever. I'd be like, yeah, go, bye, Calvin. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think. And the craziest thing about this, and a lot of people are saying a full season for betting on sports, obviously betting on your own team, but Calvin Ridley wasn't playing. He had no deciding factor in this game. Joe, I like sports betting, as we all know, and this penalty seems a little harsh. Now, yes, you kind of do need to lay down the hammer and set the precedent, but we see marijuana smokers, we see domestic violence people getting 6 games that get reduced to
yeah,
4 games or 2 games, and it's like, placing 3 bets. Now, maybe it could have been more, but 3 bets that have been reported for a total of about $1,500. And it's kind of like, really? I mean, you have betting partners in the NFL now with like DraftKings and FanDuel and stuff partnering up with the NFL. And also, it seems like, one of the podcasts I listened to made a good point. Like a month ago, Brian Flores was like, the owner was going to pay me money to lose games. Like,
exactly.
where's that penalty, right? So,
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. Like, obviously, definitely punishable act, of course, but a full season, Joe, that's just crazy. What are your thoughts on this?
I think you pretty much summed it all up. I mean, he placed a couple bets, and I understand that it's even more serious now that the NFL is partnering with DraftKings, and kind of gambling in the NFL is a little bit more frequent and legalized everywhere, or in a lot more places now. So I understand why it's even more of a bad look for
Mhm.
him to be betting on a game now, but like you said, compared to so many other, in my opinion, much more serious, incidents with domestic violence. A couple games. Like Josh Gordon, he's been out of the
Mhm.
NFL for 6 years for smoking pot. Um, it's and then like you said with Brian Flores, his allegations about Stephen Ross potentially trying to pay him to lose games. I mean, how is it that the NFL is able to get every single detail about Calvin Ridley's bets and
Mhm.
down to the dollar amount, like who he bet on, but it's crickets when it's something like that. This is just very much the NFL, just kind of trying to protect its assets in terms of the business side of things, and it's definitely disappointing to see. A talented player like Calvin Ridley who could have been on the Eagles if this had not happened. So I don't like it at all. But also, players. I Tim. Calvin Ridley was just an idiot and used his own account, his own phone. Players put bets with their cousin, their brother, a close friend. They do this. And there are ways around it so you don't get caught. You just have to not be an idiot. So, Calvin Ridley could have definitely done some things differently to not put himself in this position, but like you said, the punishment definitely does not seem like it fits the crime here.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too is he wasn't playing in these games. It'd be different if we found out that he bet and then we looked at the stats and he had like 6 catches for 20 yards and like 4 fumbles. It'd be like, okay,
Right.
but he wasn't playing in those games. So we'll just see what happens with future sports betting and other stories or whatever for Calvin Ridley. But that is unfortunate news. And now moving on to some quarterbacks that happened Tuesday. Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers decided that he is staying with the Green Bay Packers. The rumored contract is 4 years for 200 million, 153 guaranteed. He came out and said that that's not quite right. I don't know the full length of the deal, but I mean, if your company offered you 153 million guaranteed, you'd probably stay as well. So, and again, you're in the NFC, and we'll talk about the next quarterback in a second. Why would you want to go to, the AFC North or the AFC West or even the AFC East? It's like, oh, I get to play the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings 6 times a year. Yeah, I will stay doing this. Like he basically, it's kind of like Tom Brady and the Patriots. Basically right now the Packers just ride into a first round bye, if not the number 2 seed at least, and have a bunch of home games in the playoffs. So it's definitely a smart decision, and definitely have that was the first domino that needed to fall with some of these
Right.
other quarterbacks, Joe. But Aaron Rodgers staying in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really shocked. It kind of seems like, he's been playing this game since last offseason to try to leverage the Packers to, invest in him more and give him more guarantees so that, he can kind of do things on his own terms. But yeah, you got his money, you got this contract, that's awesome. But, now how are you going to be able to pay other guys and, continue to add talent around him? It's going to be that much more difficult and especially when he's been complaining about the lack
Mhm.
of talent around him. Now, I think there is some language that they've worked out where, they're going to be able to bring back Devontae Adams.
I
I
believe
think
they
he got the
franchise tag.
franchise tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from what I saw, they're working on a long-term contract with them that they need to get done by, I think, the beginning of June, if I remember correctly, is the franchise tag deadline,
Yeah.
something around then. So, that'll work. We'll see what happens. I'm just kind of the same mindset I was at the end of last season. He comes back, Devontae Adams comes back. You know, what is going to be different about this season for the Packers than last season? I mean, yeah, no Tom Brady. Um, he still lost to the 49ers in the
Mhm.
playoffs. He didn't do anything. So I need to see more. And for me to believe that they're a true Super Bowl contender, but I don't know what they're going to be able to add because now, so much money is invested in Aaron Rodgers' contract that, it's just kind of tough to put talent around him. And, this is a team that is notoriously pretty stingy. They have
Mhm.
not drafted a first round wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. This is not within their DNA to, really pay big money like this to a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So maybe their philosophy is shifting a little bit and we see a little bit of a different kind of approach to the offseason. But as it sits right now, I'm just, it's like by default,
Mhm.
they'll be good because there's not really anyone else in the NFC. Like, he's the best quarterback in the NFC by
Oh,
far.
easily.
But is it the best roster? I don't think so.
Yeah, and it could be a situation where the offense is really good, but they're probably going to be losing Zadarius Smith. I don't think that they're going to be able to bring him back, which was a key piece of the defense the last few
Yeah.
years.
And
And
Devondre Campbell, the other
yeah,
linebacker, he had an all-pro season last year. who's an older linebacker, but now he's going to get paid in free agency. So, it's just tough for Green Bay. Like it's cool. He's back. He's staying. Also like Jordan Love. What the
Yeah,
hell?
and the thing is too, it's you can't trade him, or you could. You won't get anything in return. It could be a Josh Rosen situation because Jordan Love's one game film this year against Kansas City. It wasn't the best of games, so the trade value is. I mean, you could trade him, but there's no value. You might get like a 5th-round pick or something like that at best for Jordan Love. So
That's what we would think, Tim. But as we've seen, some NFL teams are,
yes,
when we clearly see that their value should not be where it is, they're still willing to overpay. So, let's also not forget the Packers traded up to get Jordan Love in that
hmm
draft ahead of a couple potential QB needy teams. I think like the Titans, the
hmm
Seahawks, teams like that. So, maybe they're making some phone calls to some of those teams to see if they would be interested in a Jordan Love for something that they can work out.
Yeah, and you mentioned a team like the Titans too, and I mentioned in our previous episode, this is Tannehill's last year. So if they don't want to draft and develop a guy, get somebody who's been under Aaron Rodgers for a few years in a Matt LaFleur system. Matt LaFleur came from Tennessee as the offensive coordinator, so that could be a good fit. But speaking of those Seahawks, they did make a trade to acquire a quarterback. They got quarterback Drew. I'm just kidding. They did send Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. In return, they got back Drew Lock, as I mentioned. They got back tight end Noah Fant, defensive lineman Shelby Harris, 2 first-round picks, so the number 9 overall pick, and next year's first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, one this year, number 40 overall, and next year as well. And then the Seahawks and a 2022 5th-round selection to the that's what they got back, and they sent Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick this year. Obviously, they said the deal was waiting for weeks, and I would imagine Aaron Rodgers told the Broncos probably a couple of weeks ago, being like, I'm staying. You should probably go get Russell Wilson or somebody. But this is an absolutely huge upgrade for the Denver Broncos offense. Von
Yeah.
Miller's been hinting about coming back as well in free agency. So, getting the gang back together, Russell Wilson joins the division with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Derek Carr. And like I just said, if I was Aaron Rodgers, I'd be like, yeah, I will stay. I will not do that. And you even mentioned it a couple of weeks ago when we said Denver, and you're like, that's a tough division, but and it's tough to say with these trades, right? We can say who wins or loses, but we don't know. Seattle might get really great players with their draft picks. Maybe Drew Lock, new change of scenery, Noah Fant as well. We don't know. And we don't know how Russell Wilson's going to do, but it's clear that the Seahawks are now in a rebuild, while Denver has this little window with Russell Wilson as their quarterback to be like, let's fucking do it. Let's try to win a Super Bowl. We did it with Peyton Manning a couple of years ago. So there's a smaller window in Denver, but Seattle is rebuilding. So I think right now it's a good deal on both sides. Obviously, Seattle gets a couple of first-round picks that they traded away to the Jets for Jamal Adams. DK Metcalf has one more year on his rookie deal as well. So maybe they trade him to get back another couple of decent draft picks or whatever. So that is really interesting. But Joe, what are your thoughts on this Broncos acquisition of Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick?
Yes. When news first came out, I was devastated. I knew it was unlikely that the Eagles were going to be able to acquire Russell Wilson. But I was still holding out hope. And saw he got traded, really hurt. And then I saw the terms, and that really hurt because I do not think that the Broncos gave up that much for a QB of Russell Wilson. I mean, the real meat and potatoes of the draft is the 2 firsts and 2 seconds. Drew Lock, I don't care. Shelby Harris, I don't care. Like Noah Fant, he's okay. A couple other late picks, like whatever. 2 firsts and 2 seconds, I would have done that in a heartbeat. The Eagles could have done that this season with everything that they had to offer. So, that's what also made it kind of frustrating, just that it doesn't seem like the Seahawks really got as much value as they could have. And I think they kind of boxed themselves into a corner because, number one, Russell Wilson has to approve where they're going to go. And, the Eagles, for example, were not one of those teams. And, just like Washington probably was not one of those teams who offered rumored to be 3 first-round picks for Russell Wilson, but the Seahawks turned that down. So I think it's between Russell Wilson having his list of teams that he would only go to and the fact that the the Seahawks didn't want to trade him within the NFC,
Mhm.
it limits their options. So, the Broncos weren't really bidding against that many other teams. Like, I'm sure the Colts were a team that were inquiring, which we'll get to in a second, but they couldn't outbid the Broncos without a first round pick. So it just doesn't really seem like the Seahawks got as much value as they could have. I think it's a home run for the Broncos. Um, it's the best possible upgrade that they could have acquired since Aaron Rodgers didn't end up leaving Green Bay. But I do still have concerns, like you said. That division is tough. I mean, it's a really strong division. Got even stronger today, which we'll also
Mhm.
get to in a little bit. And we think about these weapons that Denver has. Are they that much better than the weapons that Seattle had on offense? I mean, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I'd probably take those two over Jerry Judy and Cortland Sutton.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
and no Noah Fant anymore. It's a better offensive line, but not great. I think that the biggest thing is it's an offensive staff, and
Mhm.
it'll be a better system. But again, that's a little bit of a projection because we've never seen Nathaniel Hackett be a head coach before. All he's done is coach Aaron Rodgers, which,
Right.
yeah, you have Aaron Rodgers, things are going to be easy. And now he gets Russell Wilson. So, granted, not, the biggest drop off as it could have been if he was going to Drew Lock, you know. But it'll be really interesting to see what happens. But I think that the Broncos for sure got the best of this deal. And, it's a great move for them. They're in a position to succeed right away.
Yeah, and the Broncos' run game isn't that fantastic. I mean, Javonte Williams had a great rookie season, Melvin Gordon as well, but definitely a big upgrade from the Seahawks running game. So I'm sure Russell Wilson is that. But yeah, they got 2 years of Russell Wilson, and then he will be 36 going into his free agent year. So we'll see about that. Definitely excited to see Russell Wilson. I believe the Broncos come into Baltimore this year, so that'll be fun to see Russell Wilson versus Lamar Jackson. But now you alluded to it, the Indianapolis Colts, they traded your boy Carson Wentz to the Washington Commanders. They found their quarterback. I believe it is 2 third-round picks, and they're taking on the full contract of Carson Wentz for this just year. Joe, he's back in the division. I'm going to let you speak on this one.
Oh, Tim, this cracked me up. I really saw this as a very strong possibility. I think it was so clear that the Colts were moving on from him based on everything that Jim Irsay, the owner, Chris Ballard, the GM, and Frank Reich,
Mhm.
the head coach, have all been saying since the end of the season. It's very clear they were going to move off of him, whether cut or trade. I didn't think that anyone would want to trade for Carson Wentz after the way his season ended last year. And I mean, you have to think about it. Like, Indy was supposed to be the perfect situation for Carson Wentz.
Mhm.
Like Frank Reich, he's the QB or the coach that unlocked Carson Wentz and, brought out the best in him. This is a great offensive line, a great defense, better weapons than the Eagles had. And he was still having the same issues, the same
Mhm.
flaws, losing games, playing too much hero ball, a lot going on behind the scenes that, did not rub management the right way. And, you know, they moved off of him. It didn't work.
Right.
It didn't work in Indy. Why is it going to work anywhere else? Why
And
would any team convince themselves it's going to?
And we saw 2 years ago, Philip Rivers, a very, similar style of quarterback, mainly a pocket guy, not going to run around a lot. Took him to the playoffs with a rookie Jonathan Taylor and still a fantastic defense. Now they had that same fantastic defense. Jonathan Taylor was the best running back in the NFL. Shout out winning a fantasy league for me. So like the Colts should have been maybe a top three seed in the AFC if you think about it, with their defense getting another year under the belt and being just as good, if not even better. Jonathan Taylor being better, and some of these wide receivers being healthy, like Michael Pittman. And it's just like, how did you miss the playoffs when basically you had a very similar style quarterback? And it's just like, and then on the Commander side, it's like, what did you see that you were like, yeah, that's our guy? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Commanders are in such a weird spot. I mean, yes, the NFC is a very winnable division, but The Cowboys are still going to be the Cowboys. The Eagles, they went to the playoffs this year. They're only going to improve, Joe. And the Giants could be interesting if they get their guy. If the rumors are true that Mitch Trubisky is going with Brian Dable, Giants could be a decent, kind of annoying team in the NFC. It's probably not to win, but they can win a few games late in the year to pull off some upsets. So it's like, I don't see what you saw in Carson Wentz. This was a desperate move. And then again, it's like, what is your window?
Very desperate.
Are you trying to win with Carson Wentz? And especially with an early pick that they have, it's like, do you not want to draft and develop some? It was just a mind-blowing deal.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. And the value is way off. I mean, 2 third-round picks, and one of those thirds can become a second. We get the Wentz tracker again, Tim. He has to play 70% of his snaps, and that third-round pick becomes a second-round pick. I mean, and they're taking on the entire contract. That's a $28 million salary cap hit this season.
Yeah,
they had $33 million before they took on, or they traded for Carson Wentz. So now they have $5 million left. They can't do anything. They can't sign anyone. They can't add any more talent. I mean, this is a dysfunctional organization. It has been for years. This is just another dysfunctional move that they're making. And I bet that they're going to still draft a QB in the first round, Tim. I mean, Wentz is older. Like, he's going to be 30 soon. He's only got after this season, his contract is you're able to move off of it pretty quick. He's probably going to be gone unless he goes crazy for some reason, which I don't expect whatsoever.
I just looked it up. His cap hit this year is like 26.2. If they keep him, it goes up about $1.5 million to like 27.6. So it's like, you basically have to go to the NFC Championship game or Super Bowl to justify that for a quarterback like Carson Wentz.
Exactly. So, and then, like I said, they're most likely going to still take a quarterback in the first round. Tim, what has Carson Wentz struggled with throughout his career?
That would be staying healthy.
Oh, that is true. That is true. What about this, mental toughness thing? When it comes to backup quarterbacks, Tim. There was a guy named Nick Foles who won the Super Bowl, stole Carson's thunder.
BDN, baby.
I don't know if you saw this the day the trade happened, Tim. A report came out from the Combine that during the Eagles Super Bowl season in 2017, Carson, while he was injured, he was complaining and voicing his displeasure to the other injured players about how the Eagles were having success without him. Upset that the Eagles were still doing good because he wasn't in. Apparently, another player had to be pulled off of him. They have to separate players. And that player is rumored to be either Darren Sproles or Jason Peters, who were both injured with them at the time. So it's just this guy's a bad teammate. We know, what happened with Jalen Hurts? He crumbled as soon as we drafted a QB in the second round to be that they said this is to be a high-end backup. This guy, if they draft in the first round, clearly is going to be the future. Clearly, the team's not even that confident in you, Carson. It's just going to be these mind games. The mental fragility of Carson Wentz is going to come out strong, and I will be there, Tim, in Philadelphia versus Washington to heckle the shit out of Carson Wentz and just boo his ass for what he's done, what he did to this city, and I can't wait to see him crumble. I'm so glad he's in the division. It's going to be hilarious. So we get to play him twice a year. DBs in the NFC East, let's go. Carson Wentz is back. Okay.
And we'll see if he can make it to some of these games. I mean, playing at FedEx Field, quarterbacks get injured there quite often.
It's where QBs go to die. It's where they end their careers. Sometimes it's before their career even gets going, like RG3. Sometimes it's the end of their career, like Alex Smith. But we know that their career is going to end if they're in Washington. Donovan McNabb, former Eagles quarterback, went to Washington, benched by week 13. I think that'll happen this year as well, Tim. I don't think they get the 70%, and I think it's because they bench him to prevent that happening.
And hey, last year we saw the passing of the Carson Wentz jersey from you to Trent. Maybe now we got to do it from Trent to Joshy P up there.
Yes.
Just the brotherhood of the traveling Carson Wentz Eagles jersey.
Yeah, it's devastating to be a Washington fan. And I a lot of Washington fans are really upset with this move because it's again, they were gonna cut him
Hmm.
gonna move off of him. You could have signed him and not have to take on 28 million. You did not have to trade multiple third round picks for him. Like this is just it's such a bad trade for Washington. So props to the Colts though, Tim, for getting out of this bad situation while they could. How crazy is it? They made this trade before the Eagles have even used the first round they got from the Colts. That's how fast he
Hmm.
he like made it clear to the Colts that they didn't want it. I mean, one season. And I don't know if you read that article in the Athletic, Tim, from the Colts beat writers, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes, like in the Indianapolis offices and practice facility where they're pretty much done with him. A couple weeks before the season, or before the season ended.
Hmm.
Even before the last two games where he imploded because they didn't like his leadership. He doesn't have leadership. He doesn't want to work on getting better. He doesn't think that he has these mistakes that he needs to fix. It's his way, and that's all he needs. It's ridiculous. Apparently, at the end of the season, Tim, he texted Jim Irsay trying to set up a meeting to clear the air. Jim Irsay
Oh,
declined that meeting.
yeah, I would imagine I would decline that meeting too. But Carson Wentz is back in the division, Joe, and I know you're excited to watch your Eagles beat up on him as well as the rest of the division. And now moving on to another trade that just happened like 5 to 10 minutes before we started recording here at the end of the workday on Thursday at about 4:45 on the East Coast. The Chicago Bears are finalizing a trade to send Khalil Mack to the Chargers. Chargers see Patrick Mahomes, they see Derek Carr, and they just see Russell Wilson a couple of days ago, and they're like, all right, let's go get Khalil Mack, baby. Right now, the Chargers are expected to send a second and sixth round pick, excuse me, second and six in 2023. No draft picks this year to get Khalil Mack. Looking at his contract, he is under contract for the next 3 seasons. Obviously, the cap hit is 17.7, then 22.9, then 23.3, and obviously a lot of dead cap if they do cut him. But let's just say they do keep him for all 3 years. 2 picks next year. Getting Khalil Mack, this is an absolute steal with the Chargers. Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. Oh my goodness, Joe. This is exactly what they needed. And we've mentioned this the past couple of seasons, is that we saw the AFC West teams build up on offense. The Chargers got Justin Herbert. They kept Mike Williams, I believe, 3 years for 60, 65. They loaded up on offensive weapons and they're like, let's win some shootouts. And they did. They did beat the Chiefs in some shootouts. But now that they got their offense pretty down pat, they got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa on that defensive line in a Brandon Staley defense. And that was a huge issue for the Chargers last year, was the
Yeah.
run game. I mean, the Ravens, we ran all over them that game. So now getting that extra piece, this is a great deal for both sides. I mean, the Bears get a couple of picks, but they also get a lot of open cap space to use to bring in some people or whatever. But this is a great deal for the Chargers. Absolutely unbelievable. Khalil Mack is amazing. Joe, your thoughts on this Khalil Mack deal?
Yeah, I think it's very smart by the Chargers. I mean, when you have a rookie quarterback playing at a really high level,
Hmm.
the best thing that you can do is maximize that
Hmm.
window while he's on the rookie contract. Justin Herbert's playing like I don't think it's crazy to say top 5, top 10 QB this
Oh,
past
yeah.
season. And, you know, he's on a rookie deal on peanuts compared to the quality of play you're getting that allows you to maybe, overspend on the cap side of things for
Hmm.
a Khalil Mack, and add a talented player like him, re-sign a Mike Williams, and still have some cap flexibility to be able to continue to do more if they like. So I think it's a phenomenal move by the Chargers. On the opposite side, I mean, the Bears also have a QB on a rookie deal. They
Hmm.
just they just got Matt Eberflus, a defensive head coach. Now you just traded away probably your best defensive player.
And
Like
no
I don't know
picks
what the
in
Bears
this seat,
plan
no
is. Yeah,
picks this draft.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand what the Bears plan is here. Like I get it. He's expensive. He's aging. You're not in really a win now
Hmm.
situation. So like that's a smart assessment. But at the same time, what's the 2 year plan? What's the 5 year plan?
Hmm.
Like if you're thinking just 5 years down the line, then okay, you're Justin Fields becoming a good quarterback that you're going to have to pay him. you're gonna have to extend him. You're not gonna be able to have talented players like Khalil Mack on your roster because you can't afford it. So it just doesn't really make sense to me from that perspective. But again, they kind of assessed their team and said we're not in win now mode, so we need to get some picks back because we just traded up for Justin Fields. I'm just what are we gonna? What's the Bears' identity gonna be this season, Tim? I mean, it's been the defense in the past. I don't think it's going to anymore.
Yeah, and it is interesting too. That the new GM is Ryan Poles, who spent a lot of time in the Kansas City front office the past couple of seasons. And I mean, you think about this too, like you said, bringing in a defensive coach, trading away Khalil Mack. What's their plan? I mean, hell, they went 10-6, 11-5 with Alex Smith as the quarterback and went to the playoffs. And then they traded from like pick 25 to pick 10. They traded up 15 picks to take Patrick Mahomes, which at the time people were like, interesting. They just went 11-5 with Alex Smith. Yes, he was aging. So seems like the Chiefs knew what they were doing. So maybe this new GM Ryan Poles, very similar strategy, kind of like okay, where are we going from here? So it's going to be interesting to see what the Bears do. I mean, Justin Fields, like you said, now they got a ton of cap space, so maybe they do go make a run at a couple of defensive players that fit Eberflus's style. Maybe they go get some extra offensive linemen. I mean, Eric Fisher is now on the market, which is really good. Bobby Wagner is now
Is
on the
it?
market.
That's good. Eric
Yes,
Fisher,
yeah,
he was
yeah.
not very good last year.
But hey, you know what? It's a veteran tackle that it can give you some much needed depth, especially with a young quarterback like Justin
Hey,
Fields. But yeah,
I'd be happy to offer an Andre Dillard.
and yeah, well, hey, I mean, Andre Dillard for sure. And then, yeah, as I just mentioned, free agency is kicking up. I know the Ravens the other day cut a bunch of people, tendered some people to create some cap space. So teams have been franchise tagging. It looks like the market this year has been tight ends. Jasicki getting a tight end, a franchise tag, excuse me. A couple of other teams franchise tag their tight end, which makes sense. Kelsey got a big deal. Mark Andrews got a big deal last year. And the free
Kittle.
agencies with like Kittle, Jonnu Smith, and Hunter Henry going to the Patriots. So obviously the franchise tag is beneficial for both the team side as well as the player side, that they're actually getting a solid cut of the money since it's based on like averages at that position. So it's not like you're just tagging a tight end being like, well, we're gonna pay you like $2 million. Like, oh no, that number's pretty good. So that seems like where the tags are going, but free agency is going to be kicking up in the next couple of weeks, next couple of days as well with the new league year and all that stuff. So Joe, obviously we don't have a breakdown of every single free agent or who's going to sign where, but what are one or two guys that you're looking at for maybe the Eagles to make a run at, or a position that you're waiting to see who might become available, obviously with the draft and stuff, but are there any one or two guys that you're like, I fucking want this guy?
Yeah, I think that the safety position in free
Mhm.
agency is one that the Eagles are going to address. Both Rodney McLeod and Anthony Harris are about to become free agents, so those were our two starting safeties last season. I expect us to probably bring one of them back, most likely Rodney McLeod. But it's a really good safety market. There's Tyrann Mathieu from the Chiefs, Marcus May from the Jets, Marcus Williams from the Saints. Eric Reed from the Texans, Whitehead from the Buccaneers. There's a lot of talented safeties that are going to be available on the market this year. I fully expect the Eagles to go after one of those. It might not be the top of the market guy like a Marcus Williams or
Mhm.
Tyrann Mathieu, but I think a Marcus May makes a lot of sense. He's coming off an injury. He should be affordable. Eric Reed with the Texans, he was a guy that the Eagles liked leading up to that draft. And or I'm sorry, I think I keep saying Eric Reed. I mean Jordan Reed, his younger brother. Um, there's it's a good safety class. The receivers were looking pretty good before all these deals got done. I mean, Godwin's tagged, Mike Williams is tagged. We'll see. It looks like Allen Robinson should be available. DJ Chark is one. I think that a realistic wide receiver option for the Eagles, because I fully expect them to bring in a wide receiver of
Mhm.
some sort. They got to try to revamp that position outside of Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins, who's okay, but he's not number two. I think Zach Pascal from the
Oh,
Colts
okay.
is a very, very realistic option. Nick Sirianni loves him and has shouted him out on multiple occasions. He'll be very affordable. He'll do the dirty work like block, and he'll be competent. Just make the catches he's
Mhm.
supposed to make. So, I think that he's a very realistic, affordable signing that the Eagles could bring in. And And then dream scenario in the draft, I really want Treylon Burks, Tim. That's my guy.
I like
You
how
know,
the bar for wide receivers for you is like just be competent and catch the ball. That is
yes, my God, like try. You know, that's the other thing. Like Jalen Rager doesn't try. You know, you just if the ball's not coming his way, he's not going to give it 100%. So I want someone out there who's going to do that dirty work. The ball might not come your way every time, but you still got to sell your route, clear out your defender, block. You know, just make the catch when the ball does come your way. You know, don't be shocked to
yeah.
see the ball coming your way. My God.
And that's a guy like you mentioned, Zach Pascal too. Like he knows he's not a 12 catch, 200-yard, 3 touchdown type of guy. But hey, you know, open it up for the other receivers. Have your 5 catches for 50 yards a game, maybe a touchdown. That just do your job, know your role, and do your job.
Exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the Eagles do at receiver there, because you know if we're as run heavy of a team as last
Mhm.
season, you know we can't expect to sign someone who's going to be like a volume receiver that we have to force feed the ball, because we're already not force feeding the ball to Devontae Smith enough. You know, so we can't bring in someone else who's going to just demand a bunch of targets, and now we're not getting Devontae Smith many targets at all. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do there. I think that while we do have, some cap space, I don't expect us to make like a big signing. I think safety position could be the biggest name. Maybe if they go for like an Allen Robinson type, that could be one. But I don't expect us to do anything too crazy in free agency. Just kind of plug some holes. I'd love a Hassan Reddick at DN. Derek Barnett's going to be a free agent. There's no way he's coming back. So we have a hole at defensive end that we need to replace. And typically, the Eagles and the smart teams, they don't go into the draft, with major holes that need to be filled. They're
Mhm.
gonna plug the holes in free agency as best they can, and then go into the draft so they can take the best player available, regardless of the position. Not like when we took Danny Watkins, the firefighter guy, a couple of years or what, in like 2010, I think, during the Dream Team era. Um,
Yeah, Vince
or
Young,
maybe that was
baby.
2012. Yeah, yeah, we had one hole on the team, and that was left guard. Andy Reid said, "Let's draft Danny Kelly, the firefighter." And guess what, Tim? This guy wanted to be a firefighter much more than play football. He was out of the NFL in like 2 years and was an absolute bust. So let me get the best player available, regardless of position. Um, I'm to see what happens. There's a lot of big names that are going to be moving around.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the Ravens side, I think obviously Tyrann Mathieu makes sense. I saw that he was plus 300, so one of the favorites would be great with our secondary. But Seahawks just released Bobby Wagner, and
Yes.
that is who I would like. I think he is
Yeah.
my go-to right now. Get a guy in the middle of your defense, a leader, right next to Patrick Queen is going to be great. I also think if we can bring back Calais Campbell as well, having Bobby Wagner and Calais Campbell just right there. Obviously, our secondary is still very, very good when healthy. So Tyrann Mathieu doesn't address an immediate need, but obviously an upgrade what we currently have. I mean, with his just freelance ability as well as Chuck Clark Smart back there calling the plays, but having a veteran guy like Bobby Wagner at linebacker and re-signing Calais Campbell. And then like our draft as well, offensive line, defensive line, secondary. That's it. As, if we get, and I saw a tweet the other day being like, no more Sammy Watkins, Allen Robinson, 1 year, six deal. Let's go all in. Cause who knows with Lamar's contract, we're going to have to pay him eventually. So it's like, let's just try to go all in, bring in Bobby Wagner, bring in Tyrann Mathieu, bring in whoever's the best couple of offensive linemen available and being like, we're winning the Super Bowl this year or next year or not for a while because we're going to have to pay Lamar, so much money. So I think Bobby Wagner is obviously my go-to. Tyrann Mathieu's number 2, and then we'll see on the offensive line. Also wouldn't be surprised if maybe we bring back a Hayden Hurst who we drafted to complement Mark Andrews as well, because we were very successful when we had that 2 tight end system in 2019. So wouldn't be surprised if we bring him back on a cheap deal as well. But yeah, and just doing some more draft stuff, Joe. We are oh man, there's no football right now, but there is football. Like all season free agencies. But before we head out, any
Yeah.
final words before we hop into another episode? Probably in the next couple of days. I'm sure there'll be more breaking news with free agency. But anything for the next couple of days or week?
hopefully we find out within the next couple days that
Mhm.
Jason Kelsey is confirmed returning to the Eagles. He was on the radio today. I think WIP the fan.
Ooh.
Just hosting and just talking to fans, and a certain Nick from South Philly called in. Spoiler: it was Nick Sirianni calling in. Just messing with Jason Kelsey. So it's fun to see these guys in the offseason, but let's make sure Jason Kelsey's back leading the team at center for the Eagles.
Yeah, and right now it's March 10th. Free agency begins on March 16th at 1 p.m. However, you can start negotiating on March 14th. So we'll definitely come back next week as we approach free agency, as we're only a couple of days away. So, man, I'm excited. It's going to be interesting to see those tweets. Make sure you turn on your notifications for Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, maybe your local beat writer as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun, gang. But that's Joey D over there. And I'm Timmy B. Thank you guys for watching the Flea Flicker again. Like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
I'm coming for you, Carson.